The screen is black. A sound fills the void. It is not thunder. It is not artillery. It is the sound of a man trying to breathe through a crushed chest. Each inhale is a wet, tearing rattle. Each exhale is a long, bubbling sigh. The sound goes on for 10 seconds. 15. It is unbearable. Fade in. The camera is inches from a young face. Private William Reynolds. He is 19. His eyes are wide open, staring at the gray sky above Normandy. They are not blinking. They are fixed on something we cannot see. His lips move slightly, forming a word, but no sound comes out. Only a thin trickle of blood that runs down his cheek and pools in his ear. His uniform blouse is torn open, and where his chest should be rising and falling, there is only a dark, glistening wound packed with mud and a single shred of field dressing that someone tried to press there before they were shot too. The camera holds on his eyes. They are beautiful, blue, innocent. They look confused, as if he is trying to understand a simple question that has suddenly become very complicated. Then, slowly, the light in them begins to dim, like a lamp running out of fuel. The rattling breath stops. The screen is silent. Cut to 2 minutes earlier. Private Reynolds is crouched behind a hedgerow, his back pressed against the ancient gnarled roots. He is alive. His chest rises and falls with rapid, shallow breaths. His hands tremble slightly as he checks his rifle for the 5th time in 10 minutes. He is terrified. He is also real. In his left breast pocket, just over his heart, he carries a photograph. It is creased and softened from being folded and unfolded 100 times. It shows a girl with dark hair and a smile that takes up her whole face. Her name is Sarah. She is waiting for him in a town called Dayton, Ohio. He promised her he would write every day. He has not written in a week. He does not know what to say. How do you describe this place in a letter? He looks around at the men in his squad. They are not the heroes from the newsreels. They are exhausted. Their uniforms are stiff with dried mud and sweat. Their eyes are hollow, ringed with dark circles. One man, a machine gunner named Kowalski, is asleep sitting up, his head lolling back against the dirt wall, his mouth open. He looks dead. Another man, a replacement who arrived 3 days ago and whose name Reynolds cannot remember, is vomiting quietly into the grass. No one helps him. No one looks at him. It is his 3rd day. He will learn to stop vomiting soon, or he will die. Sergeant Lucas crawls down the line. He is the oldest man in the squad, 32 years old, a professional soldier from the regular army before the war. His face is weathered and expressionless. He moves like a man who has done this too many times. He stops next to Reynolds and points through a narrow gap in the hedgerow, a place where a cow path once led into the next field. Reynolds looks through the gap. He sees the field. It is maybe 50 yards wide. At the far end, another hedgerow, thicker and darker. Somewhere in that hedgerow, hidden in the shadows, is a German machine gun. Reynolds knows this because he has seen the bodies in the field. They have been there for 3 days. The Germans let them rot as a warning. There are 5 of them, maybe 6. They lie in various positions, like men who fell asleep in the grass and never woke up. Their uniforms are the same color as the mud now. The crows have been at them. Lucas points to Reynolds. Then he points to the gap. Then he points to a shallow ditch on the far side of the field, near the German lines. That is the objective. Get to the ditch. Provide covering fire for the rest of the squad. It is a simple plan. It is also a death sentence for the first man through the gap. Reynolds looks at Lucas. He wants to say something. He wants to ask why him. He wants to ask if the sergeant knows about Sarah, about the photograph in his pocket, about the life he's supposed to go back to, but he does not say anything. There is no point. Lucas already knows. He has seen 100 boys like Reynolds. He has sent 100 boys through gaps like this. Most of them did not make it to the ditch. Reynolds reaches into his pocket. His fingers find the photograph. He does not take it out. He just touches it, feeling the soft edges, the worn creases. He closes his eyes for 1 second. He sees Sarah's face. He hears her laugh. Then he opens his eyes, and he is back in the green hell. He nods to Lucas. The sergeant nods back. There is no handshake, no words of encouragement, just two men acknowledging a fact. Reynolds grips his rifle. He gets into a crouch. His legs feel like they belong to someone else, weak and disconnected. He looks at the gap. It is only a few feet away. 50 yards of open field beyond it. A ditch, a machine gun. Death, waiting in the shadows. He takes a breath. He holds it. A sound rips through the air. Not a gunshot. Something else. A wet, meaty thump. Reynolds feels something hit his chest. It feels like a sledgehammer wrapped in fire. He looks down. There is a hole in his uniform. It was just there, and now it is not. Now there is a hole. The blood is already spreading, dark and fast, soaking the fabric, soaking the photograph in his pocket. He does not feel pain. Not yet. He feels confusion. He looks up at Lucas. The sergeant's face has changed. For the first time, there is something there. Not shock, not pity. Just a tired, ancient sadness. Lucas reaches out to grab Reynolds to pull him down, but it is too late. Reynolds is already falling. He falls backward, out of the gap, onto the soft, damp earth of the hedgerow. He lands on his back. He stares up at the gray sky. He tries to breathe, but something is wrong. His chest will not work. It makes a sound. A wet, tearing rattle. He tries to call out, to say something, to ask for help. But only blood comes out, warm and salty, filling his mouth. He thinks of Sarah. He hopes she knows he was thinking of her. He hopes someone will write to her and tell her that he was brave. He does not know if he was brave. He only knows that he was scared. He hopes that counts for something. The light in his eyes begins to fade. The gray sky above him grows darker, even though the sun has not moved. He hears sounds, distant and muffled, men shouting, rifle fire, the deep thump of a mortar. But they are far away now, on the other side of a long, dark tunnel. His last thought is not of war. It is not of duty or country or victory. It is of a summer evening in Ohio, the smell of cut grass, and a girl with dark hair laughing at something stupid he just said. He holds on to that thought. He holds it tight. And then he lets go. Cut to General Omar Bradley's headquarters. A ruined farmhouse with a sagging roof and walls pockmarked by shrapnel. Inside, Bradley stands over a map. He is alone. The room is silent, except for the distant rumble of artillery, a sound so constant it has become the absence of sound. On the table beside the map is a stack of papers. Casualty reports. Bradley picks up the top sheet. His eyes move down the list of names. They are just names to him. Ink on paper. But he knows that behind each name there is a face. A mother, a girl in Ohio waiting for a letter. His finger stops on one name. Reynolds. William. Private. Killed in action. Bradley stares at the name for a long moment. He does not know this boy. He never saw his face. He does not know about the photograph in his pocket, or the girl with dark hair, or the summer evenings in Dayton. But he knows what was asked of him. He knows what he was sent to do. And he knows that he died in a field that is still in German hands. Bradley puts the paper down. He takes off his glasses and rubs his eyes. He is not a young man. The war has aged him 10 years in 2 months. He looks at the map again. The lines have barely moved in weeks. Each name on that paper represents a few yards of ground. Sometimes less, sometimes nothing at all. He thinks of the men out there, in the mud and the rain, pressing against the hedgerows, waiting for orders that will send them through gaps, like the one Private Reynolds tried to cross. He thinks of the German machine guns, perfectly placed, perfectly aimed, waiting for the next boy to appear in their sights. He thinks of the pressure from London, from Washington, from the newspapers. Why are we stopped? When will you move? Bradley puts his glasses back on. He looks at the map. His eyes trace the roads leading south toward St. Lo. The key, the hinge, the way out of this nightmare. But to get there, he has to send more boys through more gaps. He has to add more names to the list. His hand rests on the table. For a moment, his fingers tap lightly, nervously, on the wood. It is the only sign of the pressure building inside him, the only crack in the calm facade. He is a good general, a careful general. But careful does not win wars. Careful gets you stuck in a swamp while your men die one by one in fields full of mud and crows. He looks up toward the window, toward the sound of the guns. The light outside is fading. Another day is ending. Tomorrow he will have to make a choice. He will have to decide what gamble he is willing to take. He will have to look at the names on the paper and ask himself, how many more? The camera holds on his face. The face of a man who carries the weight of thousands of Private Reynoldses on his shoulders. Then slowly, the screen fades to black. The screen is black. A sound emerges slowly. It is not the chaos of battle. It is the steady, rhythmic scratching of a pencil on paper. The sound is intimate, almost domestic. It continues for 10 seconds, drawing the listener in, creating a strange sense of calm before the storm. Fade in. A single candle burns on a wooden table. Its flame flickers slightly, casting dancing shadows on the walls of a cramped farmhouse room. Seated at the table is General Omar Bradley. His jacket is unbuttoned, his sleeves are rolled up, his glasses are perched on his nose, and in his hand, he holds a pencil. He is not writing orders. He is drawing. On a sheet of paper before him, Bradley sketches a diagram. It is crude, almost childlike. A series of small rectangles representing fields, thick lines representing hedgerows, a single thicker line representing a road, and then over the top of it all, a series of X's drawn in a grid pattern, like rain falling on the page. He stares at the X's for a long moment. Then he crosses them out and starts again. This is how the most important operation of the Normandy campaign begins. Not with a roar, but with a whisper. Not with certainty, but with doubt. A general alone in a room, trying to solve an equation that has no right answer. Cut to the next morning. Bradley's command post is no longer quiet. Officers crowd around the map table. Aides rush in and out with messages. The air is thick with cigarette smoke and the smell of stale coffee. Bradley stands at the center of it all, calm and still, while the storm of activity swirls around him. He unrolls a large map and weights the corners with empty shell casings. The map shows a narrow stretch of front line west of St. Lo, near the road to Coutances. It is a section of the German line held by the Panzer Lehr Division, an elite armored unit made up of experienced veterans and equipped with the best tanks the Germans still have. They are the enemy's fire brigade, sent to plug any hole that appears. And right now, they are sitting directly in Bradley's way. Bradley's finger traces a line on the map. It is only 7 kilometers long, less than 4.5 miles, a tiny fraction of the entire front. But on this narrow strip of ground, Bradley intends to place the weight of the entire American First Army. 7 divisions packed into a space meant for one. Tanks lined up bumper to bumper. Artillery batteries stacked so close together that their guns almost touch. It is a gamble of staggering proportions. If the Germans discover the buildup, if they concentrate their own artillery on that single point, they could slaughter the assembled forces before the attack even begins. An officer leans over the map. He is a young colonel, bright and ambitious, but his face shows doubt. He points to the German positions, marked in red pencil. They are strong. They are deep. They have had weeks to prepare. How does the general intend to break through such a defense? Bradley does not answer immediately. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small photograph. He places it on the map. The photograph shows a formation of B-17 flying fortresses, their silver fuselages gleaming in the sun, their massive wings stretching across the sky. They are beautiful. They are terrifying. And Bradley intends to use them not as strategic bombers, but as the world's largest artillery piece. The idea is simple in concept, horrifying in execution. Instead of a creeping artillery barrage that moves forward at walking pace, Bradley wants to drop thousands of tons of high explosives directly on the German positions in a single cataclysmic moment. He wants to use heavy bombers, the same planes that strike German cities at night, to turn a 7-kilometer stretch of the Norman countryside into a lunar landscape. He wants to kill the Panzer Lehr Division, not in battle, but in their holes, before they even know the attack has begun. The young colonel stares at the photograph. He understands the logic. He also understands the risk. The bombers will be flying parallel to the front line, dropping their loads on a signal. If they are early, the bombs will fall on American troops. If they are late, the Germans will have time to recover. If the wind shifts, if the smoke drifts back, if a single navigator makes a mistake, American soldiers will die by the hundreds under their own bombs. Bradley looks at the colonel. He does not need to explain the risk. The colonel already knows. Everyone in the room knows. They have all seen the newsreels of bombing raids. They have all seen what high explosives do to flesh and bone. They know that there is no such thing as precision from 20,000 feet. There is only probability, and probability means that some of those bombs will fall short. Cut 2, a different room, a different map. This one is in England, at the headquarters of the 8th Air Force. American generals sit across from British air marshals. The atmosphere is tense. The airmen do not want to be here. They believe in strategic bombing, in crippling German industry, in winning the war from the sky. They do not want to waste their precious bombers on a tactical mission in support of ground troops they consider slow and unimaginative. The senior American air commander, General Carl Spaatz, leans back in his chair. He is a tall, imposing man with a sharp jaw and cold eyes. He listens to Bradley's plan with barely concealed impatience. When the briefing is over, he asks a single question. What if it fails? The question hangs in the air. Bradley's representative, a major general sent to plead the case, has no good answer. If it fails, the bombers will have been wasted. The element of surprise will be lost. The Germans will reinforce the sector, and the American army will remain trapped in the hedgerows until winter, bleeding out one squad at a time. Spaatz looks at the other air commanders. He sees the same skepticism in their eyes. They have their own war to fight, their own targets to hit, their own glory to seek. Why should they risk their planes and their crews on a scheme dreamed up by a ground-pounder who cannot find a way through a few bushes? But then another voice speaks. It is calm, measured, and carries the weight of experience. General Hoyt Vandenberg, Spaatz's deputy, leans forward. He has spent time with Bradley. He has seen the maps. He has walked through the hedgerows and talked to the men who fight in them. He speaks quietly, but his words cut through the tension. He describes the casualty lists. He describes the faces of the replacements. He describes the stench of bodies rotting in the summer heat, because neither side can risk retrieving them. He tells the airmen that if they refuse this mission, if they do not help break the stalemate, the ground war will grind on for months, and every week of delay means more dead Americans. He reminds them that they are all fighting the same war. The room falls silent. Spaatz stares at the map for a long time. Then, without a word, he nods. The bombers will support the operation. But the conditions are strict. The bombing must be perfect. The timing must be exact. And if anything goes wrong, the ground forces will have no one to blame but themselves. Cut to the front lines. Night. Under the cover of darkness, the greatest concentration of American firepower ever assembled begins to move. Tank engines rumble to life, their sound muffled by the hedgerows. Trucks filled with ammunition creep along narrow lanes, their drivers guided by men with flashlights. Infantrymen march in columns, their boots thudding softly on the dirt roads, their faces invisible in the darkness. It is a movement of staggering complexity. 7 divisions cannot simply appear at the front. They must be fed in piece by piece, unit by unit, vehicle by vehicle, without alerting the Germans to what is coming. Every light is shielded. Every radio is silent. Every man knows that one mistake, one careless cough or dropped helmet, could bring down German artillery and turn the roads into slaughterhouses. At a crossroads near the town of Marigny, a young lieutenant stands in the mud, checking his map by the faint red glow of a flashlight. He is 22 years old. He commands a platoon of tanks, 30 men, and 5 machines. And he has been told to report to a staging area he cannot find on any map. Around him, the night is alive with movement. Trucks rumble past. Men curse softly in the dark. Somewhere ahead, a German flare goes up, casting pale light over the trees, and everyone freezes. The flare drifts down slowly, impossibly slowly, and then dies. The movement resumes. The lieutenant thinks of the morning. He thinks of the bombers, the thousands of bombers that will darken the sky. He thinks of what will be left of the German lines when they are done. And he thinks of what will be left of his tanks, his men himself, if the bombs fall short. He pushes the thought away. There is no room for it. There is only the night, the mud, and the road ahead. Cut to Bradley's headquarters. Dawn. The first light of day creeps through the shattered windows. Bradley has not slept. He stands at the map table, surrounded by his staff, waiting for the final reports. One by one, they come in. The 1st Infantry Division is in position. The 2nd Armored Division is in position. The 30th Infantry Division is in position. The artillery is registered. The ammunition is stacked. The men are waiting. Bradley looks at the map one last time. His eyes trace the 7 kilometers of front, the narrow corridor through which he intends to launch the breakout. He thinks of Private Reynolds, whose name he saw on the casualty list. He thinks of all the other names, the thousands of names that have accumulated since D-Day. He thinks of the men moving through the darkness right now, trusting him, trusting his plan, trusting that he knows what he is doing. He does not know. Not really. He hopes. He calculates. He gambles. But he does not know. No one knows. That is the nature of war. That is the nature of command. You make the best plan you can, and then you wait for the first shot to be fired, and then you learn if you were right or wrong. Outside, the sky begins to lighten. The clouds are low and heavy. The weather forecast is uncertain. The bombers may not be able to fly. The whole operation may have to be postponed, delayed, perhaps canceled altogether. Bradley looks up at the sky through the broken window. He watches the clouds drift slowly overhead. He waits. The camera holds on his face. It is the face of a man who has placed everything on a single throw of the dice. Behind him, on the table, lies the crude drawing he made in the candlelight. The X's marking where the bombs will fall, the rectangles marking the fields where the men will die, the single thick line marking the road to freedom. The screen fades slowly to black, leaving only the image of Bradley's face, suspended in the darkness, waiting for the dawn. The screen is black. For 5 seconds, there is only silence. Then slowly, a sound begins to build. It is distant at first, like the buzzing of a million insects. It grows louder, deeper, more insistent. It becomes a rumble, then a roar, then a physical presence that seems to shake the very air in the theater. It is the sound of 1,000 aircraft approaching. Fade in. The sky over Normandy. It is July 24th, 1944, and the sky is disappearing. From horizon to horizon, the heavens are filled with silver bodies. B-17, flying fortresses, and B-24 Liberators, their massive wings stretching 80 feet from tip to tip, their 4 engines each screaming at full throttle. They fly in formation, box after box after box, a river of metal flowing southward at 17,000 feet. There are so many that they create their own weather, their contrails spreading and merging into a man-made cloud layer that blocks out the sun. On the ground, American soldiers look up. They have seen bombers before. They have watched them droning overhead on their way to Germany, to Hamburg, to Berlin, to places whose names they know only from newspapers. But they have never seen anything like this. The bombers are not flying east today. They are flying directly overhead parallel to the front line, and they are so low that the men can see the individual bombs nestled in their racks, can almost make out the faces of the crews in the plexiglass noses. A young infantryman from Texas stands in a shallow trench, his helmet tipped back, his mouth hanging open. He counts the bombers as they pass. He reaches 50, then 100, then 200, and then he gives up. There are too many. They keep coming, wave after wave, an unending stream of American power pouring across the sky. He feels something he has not felt in weeks. He feels hope. He turns to the man next to him, a grizzled sergeant from Brooklyn, and starts to speak. But the sergeant grabs his arm and shakes his head. His face is not hopeful. His face is afraid. The sergeant knows something the young Texan does not. He has been in this war long enough to know that the difference between a smart plan and a disaster is usually measured in inches, and inches from 17,000 feet are impossible to measure. Cut to the German lines. The men of the Panzer Lehr Division, the elite armored unit tasked with holding this sector, are not looking up. They are looking down, deep into their holes, their bunkers, their trenches. They have been expecting this. Their radios have been crackling with warnings for hours. The Luftwaffe, what little is left of it, cannot stop this armada. The flak batteries, those that remain, cannot shoot down enough to matter. There is only one thing to do: dig deeper, pray harder, wait. In a command post dug into the side of a hill, General Fritz Bayerlein, commander of Panzer Lehr, listens to the growing roar. He is a professional soldier, a veteran of Africa and Russia, a man who has seen the face of war in its most terrible forms. But even he has never seen anything like this. He looks at his staff, at the maps spread before him, at the photographs of his wife and children tucked into his helmet liner. He knows what is coming. He knows there is nothing he can do to stop it. The first bombs fall at exactly 9:38 in the morning. From the air, it looks beautiful. The bombs tumble from the bays, catching the sunlight for a moment before they begin their long descent. They fall in clusters, then in sheets, then in a solid curtain of steel and explosive. They strike the earth in a line that stretches for 7 kilometers, and for a single, crystalline moment, the ground seems to rise up to meet them. Then the sound hits. It is not a bang. It is not a boom. It is a continuous, rolling, world-ending roar that erases all other sound, all thought, all sensation. The ground shakes like a terrified animal. Trees that have stood for centuries are ripped from the earth and thrown into the air like matchsticks. Houses, barns, churches, everything built by human hands for 1,000 years, dissolve into dust. The German trenches, so carefully dug, so perfectly positioned, collapse inward, burying the men inside. From the air, the bombs walk across the landscape. First one field, then the next, then the next. Each impact throws up a fountain of dirt and smoke, and as the line of bombs advances, these fountains merge into a single towering wall of brown and black that rises 2,000 feet into the air. The German positions, marked so clearly on the maps, simply cease to exist. A young German soldier, no older than the Texan in the American lines, huddles at the bottom of his hole. His hands cover his ears. His eyes are squeezed shut. His lips move in a prayer his mother taught him when he was a child. He feels the ground heave beneath him. He feels the air being sucked from his lungs. He feels something heavy and wet land on his back, and he does not want to know what it is. He opens his eyes for just a second, and he sees the man who was next to him, the man who shared his rations last night, the man who told him about his girlfriend in Munich. He is no longer there. There is only a red smear on the wall of the trench and a single boot, still laced, still containing a foot. The German soldier screams, but he cannot hear his own voice. There is only the roar. Cut to the American lines. The young Texan is no longer looking up with hope. He is pressed flat against the bottom of his trench, his hands over his head, his body shaking uncontrollably. The bombs are falling where they are supposed to fall, on the German positions. but they are so close that he can feel the heat of each explosion on his face. The ground beneath him bucks and rolls like the ocean in a storm. Dirt rains down on his back, thick and heavy, threatening to bury him alive. The sergeant from Brooklyn is next to him, his face pressed into the mud, his lips moving in a steady stream of curses that the Texan cannot hear but can feel through the ground. The sergeant has been in North Africa, in Sicily, in Italy. He has seen death in 100 forms, but he has never been this close to the end of the world. And then it happens. A formation of bombers, their navigators confused by the smoke and dust, drifts slightly off course. Their bombs, intended for the German rear areas, begin to fall on a road just behind the American lines. On that road, packed with trucks and jeeps and men waiting to move forward, is the 2nd Battalion of the 121st Infantry Regiment. The first bomb lands in the middle of a column of trucks. The explosion is so violent that the trucks simply vanish, replaced by a ball of orange fire and black smoke. The second bomb lands among a group of men huddled in a ditch. They do not have time to react. One moment they are there, smoking cigarettes, checking their gear, talking about what they will do after the war. The next moment they are nothing, just pieces, just names for a list. A third bomb lands directly on a command post, a shallow dugout covered with logs and dirt. Inside, a company commander is on the radio, trying to coordinate his unit's advance. The bomb does not discriminate. The commander, his radio operator, his runner, his medic, all of them are erased in a fraction of a second. The young Texan hears these bombs too. They are closer, much closer, and they sound different. They sound wrong. He looks up, his face streaked with mud and tears. He did not know he was crying. And he sees the smoke rising from behind his own lines. He sees the burning trucks. He sees the bodies, or what is left of them, being loaded onto stretchers by men who move like automatons, their faces blank with shock. He looks at the sergeant. The sergeant is staring at the same scene. His face is not afraid anymore. It is something worse. It is knowing. He knew this could happen. He knew the plan was a gamble. And now he is watching the house lose. Cut to Bradley's headquarters. The general stands at the window watching the smoke rise from the front. He does not need the reports to tell him what has happened. He can see it. He can feel it. In the sudden silence of his staff, in the way they have stopped moving, stopped talking, stopped breathing. A young officer bursts through the door. His face is white. His hands shake as he holds out a message form. Bradley takes it. He reads it. His face does not change. It remains calm, composed. The face of a man who has spent his entire life learning to hide his emotions. But his hand, the hand holding the message, trembles slightly. Just for a moment. Just enough for the young officer to see. The message lists the casualties from the short bombs. 30 men dead. More than 100 wounded. Among the dead is a name that makes Bradley close his eyes for a long second. General Leslie McNair, the highest-ranking American officer to be killed in action in the European theater. A man sent to observe the operation, to witness the breakout, to report back to Eisenhower. He was watching from a forward position, eager to see the bombs fall on the enemy. Instead, he saw them fall on his own countrymen. And then he saw nothing at all. Bradley folds the message carefully and places it in his pocket. He looks out the window again. The bombers are still coming, wave after wave, their payloads still falling on the German lines. The operation is not over. It cannot be over. Too much has been invested. Too many men are already moving. He cannot stop now, even if he wants to, even if every instinct tells him that the plan has already failed. He turns to his staff. His voice, when he speaks, is calm and steady. He orders them to continue the bombardment, to prepare the troops, to execute the plan as designed. He does not mention the short bombs. He does not mention McNair. He does not mention the 30 dead and the 100 wounded. There is no time for that. There is only the operation, the breakout, the need to keep moving forward. But as he turns back to the window, the camera holds on his face, and in his eyes, for just a moment, there is something that was not there before. Doubt. Not doubt in the plan. Not doubt in his men. Doubt in himself. Doubt in the terrible arithmetic of war that requires some men to die so that others can live. Doubt in the mathematics that put 30 Americans in the ground before a single German was killed. The screen holds on his eyes. Behind him, through the window, the smoke continues to rise. The roar of the bombers continues to fill the sky. The operation continues, unstoppable now, a machine that cannot be turned off. And somewhere in the German lines, in a hole filled with mud and the remains of his comrades, a young soldier opens his eyes and realizes he is still alive. He does not know if this is a blessing or a curse. He only knows that the bombs have stopped falling on his position. For now. And that somewhere out there, through the smoke and the dust, American tanks are beginning to move. The screen fades slowly to black, leaving only the echo of the bombers, fading into silence. The screen is black. For a long moment there is only silence. Then slowly, a new sound emerges. It is not the roar of bombers or the crash of artillery. It is softer, stranger, more unsettling. It is the sound of wind moving through a landscape that has been stripped bare. It whistles over broken ground. It rattles through the skeletal remains of trees. It is the sound of emptiness. Fade in. The camera moves slowly across a scene that does not look like Earth. The ground is pockmarked with craters, some of them 20 feet deep and 30 feet across. They overlap like bubbles in boiling water, creating a terrain of hills and valleys where none existed before. The soil, once rich and dark, has been churned into a fine gray dust that rises in clouds with every breath of wind. Nothing grows here, nothing moves. The few trees that remain are stripped of their branches, their trunks splintered and blackened, pointing accusing fingers at the empty sky. This is what is left of the German positions after the bombing. This is the price of the gamble. Into this lunar landscape, the first American soldiers begin to move. They rise from their trenches, slowly, cautiously, as if expecting the world to end again at any moment. Their ears ring with a high-pitched whine that will not go away. Their eyes water from the dust and the smoke. They grip their rifles with hands that will not stop shaking, and they step forward into the unknown. A young sergeant from Ohio, a man named Frank DeLeo, who was a school teacher before the war, leads his squad across the broken ground. He has been told to expect resistance. He has been told to prepare for a fight. But as he moves forward, stepping over craters and around the twisted remains of German equipment, he realizes that there is no one to fight. The Germans are simply gone, not retreated, not surrendered, gone, erased. He comes to a trench line that was marked on his map as a major defensive position. It is still there, in a sense, but it has been collapsed, filled in, buried. He sees a hand protruding from the dirt, the fingers curled as if reaching for something. He sees a helmet, half buried, with something still inside it that he does not look at closely. He sees a photograph, somehow untouched, lying on the surface of the churned earth. It shows a woman and 2 children, smiling at the camera. He picks it up, stares at it for a moment, then tucks it into his pocket. He does not know why. He will never look at it again. But it feels wrong to leave it there. Behind him, the rest of the squad spreads out, their faces masks of shock and disbelief. They have dreamed of this moment for weeks. They have imagined breaking through the German lines, chasing the enemy, winning the war. But none of them imagined this. None of them imagined a victory that looked so much like the end of the world. Cut to a road south of the bombardment zone. It is a narrow country lane, lined with trees that are somehow still standing. And on this road, the American army begins to do something it has not done since landing in Normandy. It begins to move, tanks rumble forward, their treads throwing up clouds of dust. Half-tracks filled with infantry follow close behind. Jeeps dart between the larger vehicles, carrying messengers and officers. Trucks loaded with ammunition and fuel and food form a long column that stretches back for miles. It is a river of metal and men flowing southward at a speed that seems impossible after the grinding slowness of the hedgerow fighting. In the lead tank of an armored column, a young lieutenant named James Saunders stands in the turret, his upper body exposed to the wind and the sun. He knows this is dangerous. He knows a sniper could kill him with a single shot. But he does not care. After weeks of being trapped, of moving at a crawl, of watching his friends die for a single field, he needs to feel the wind in his face. He needs to feel speed. He needs to feel that the war is finally moving. The road ahead is empty. The Germans have vanished. Saunders's tank passes a burned-out German half-track, then a truck, then what looks like the remains of a staff car. He sees papers scattered across the road, maps and orders and letters home, fluttering in the wind like strange flowers. He sees a German helmet hanging from a tree branch, swinging slowly in the breeze. He sees a field where cows lie dead in rows, killed by the shock waves of the bombs. And then he sees the first living German. He is an old man, or at least he looks old. His uniform is torn and covered with dust. His face is blank, expressionless, the face of someone whose mind has fled to a place where bombs cannot reach. He stands in the middle of the road, his hands raised above his head, his rifle lying in the dirt at his feet. He does not move as the tank approaches. He does not flinch as the massive machine bears down on him. He simply stands there, waiting to be killed or captured, not caring which. Saunders signals to the driver to stop. He jumps down from the turret and approaches the German, his pistol drawn. The German does not look at him. His eyes are fixed on something in the middle distance, something only he can see. Saunders searches him quickly, finds nothing, and points toward the rear, toward the growing column of prisoners that is already forming behind the advance. The German walks away without a word, without a glance, disappearing into the dust like a ghost. Saunders climbs back into the tank. He looks at his hands. They are not shaking. He feels nothing. No hatred for the enemy, no pity for the broken man he just sent to the rear, no joy at the breakthrough, just nothing. an emptiness that matches the landscape around him. He gives the order to move forward. The tank lurches ahead, and the column resumes its advance into the unknown. Cut to a German command post, captured before the Germans could destroy their maps. American intelligence officers spread the documents across a table, their eyes widening as they realize what they have found. The maps show every German position, every supply route, every reserve unit, every fuel dump. They show the complete disintegration of the German defense. They show that for the first time since D-Day, the enemy has no idea what to do. A colonel looks up from the maps. His face is not triumphant. It is amazed. He has been fighting this war for 3 years. He has seen the Germans at their best in Africa and Sicily and Italy. He has never seen them like this. He has never seen them broken. He reaches for the radio. He has news to send to Bradley. News that will change everything. The door is open. The Germans are running. And the American army is finally, after all these weeks, free. Cut to a small French village, the first to be liberated in the breakout. The Americans arrive to find the streets empty, the houses shuttered, the population hiding in cellars and barns. But as the tanks rumble through the town square, the doors begin to open. Faces appear in windows. Children run into the streets, their eyes wide with wonder at the sight of American soldiers. An old woman emerges from a stone house, clutching a bottle of wine to her chest. She has been hiding it since 1940, saving it for this moment, for the day the Americans came. She approaches the nearest soldier, a young private who looks more exhausted than triumphant, and presses the bottle into his hands. She is crying. She is laughing. She is speaking French so fast that he cannot understand a word, but he does not need to understand. He knows what she means. Behind her, more villagers emerge. They bring bread and cheese and flowers. They hug the soldiers, kiss their cheeks, touch their uniforms, as if to confirm that they are real. The soldiers, dirty and tired, and still vibrating with the shock of battle, do not know how to respond. They smile awkwardly. They accept the gifts. They pat the children on the head. They try to remember that this is what they are fighting for. This moment, this joy, this freedom. But even as they celebrate, they know the war is not over. Somewhere to the south, the Germans are regrouping. Somewhere to the east, the Panzer divisions are waiting. This village is free, but there are 1,000 more villages still under the swastika. There is no time to rest. There is no time to celebrate. The young lieutenant from Ohio, Frank DeLeo, stands at the edge of the village, looking south. He can see the smoke rising from the next town, the next battlefield. He can hear the distant rumble of artillery, the sound of war continuing without him. He knows that soon, too soon, he will have to leave this place, leave the wine and the flowers and the laughing children, and go back to the business of killing. He reaches into his pocket and touches the photograph he picked up in the German trench. The woman and the 2 children, smiling at a camera that no longer exists. He wonders where they are now. He wonders if they are alive. He wonders if they will ever know what happened to the man in the photograph, the man whose hand reached for something in his final moment. He pulls his hand from his pocket and looks at the village one last time. Then he turns and walks back to his squad. There is work to do. There is a war to win. There is a road ahead, and it leads to Germany. The camera rises above the village, above the celebrating civilians and the exhausted soldiers. above the tanks and the trucks, and the long columns of prisoners shuffling to the rear. It rises until the village becomes a dot, the road becomes a line, the entire landscape becomes a map of craters and smoke and moving men. And in the center of that map, somewhere to the north, General Omar Bradley receives the news. He reads the message from the captured command post. He reads the reports of the advance. He looks at the map on his table, the same map he studied in the candlelight, the same map where he drew his crude X's. For the first time in weeks, his face changes. The mask of calm, the careful composure, cracks just enough to let something through. It is not joy. It is not triumph. It is something quieter, deeper. It is relief. The gamble paid off. The door is open. The breakout has begun. He picks up his pencil and draws a new line on the map. A long, thick arrow pointing south toward the heart of France, toward the German border, toward the end of the war. He draws it carefully, deliberately, knowing that every mile this arrow travels will be paid for in blood. Then he puts down the pencil and looks out the window. The sun is setting over Normandy, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. It has been a long day, a terrible day, a day of death and destruction and the beginning of freedom. Tomorrow the advance continues. The screen holds on Bradley's face, silhouetted against the setting sun. Then, slowly, it fades to black. The screen is black. A sound begins, low and rhythmic. It is the clanking of tank treads on paved road, a sound that is mechanical, relentless, almost musical in its steady percussion. It grows louder, fills the darkness, becomes the only thing in the world. Fade in. A road in Normandy, but not the narrow, sunken lanes of the bocage. This is a proper road, paved and straight, running south through open country. And on this road, the American army is no longer walking. It is running. Tanks race forward at speeds their crews never thought they would achieve in combat. Shermans, their engines pushed to the limit, throw up clouds of dust that hang in the air like smoke. Behind them come the half-tracks, packed with infantrymen, who cling to the sides, their faces wind-blown and grinning. Jeeps dart between the larger vehicles, carrying officers and messengers, and the precious fuel cans that keep the whole column moving. It is a river of steel 20 miles long, flowing south at 25 miles per hour, and nothing in France can stop it. In the turret of the lead tank, a young commander named Captain Jack Thompson stands exposed to the wind, his eyes scanning the horizon. He is 26 years old, a farmer's son from Iowa, and he has never moved this fast in his entire life. The countryside blurs past him. Fields and farms and villages flash by, each one disappearing before he can register its existence. He feels like he is flying. He feels like he is dreaming. He feels, for the first time since landing on Omaha Beach, like he is winning. Behind him, stretched out for miles, the rest of his battalion follows. They have been given one order and one order only. Go. Go as fast as you can. Go until you run out of gas. Go until you meet the enemy. Go until someone tells you to stop. No one has told them to stop. No one expects to tell them to stop. The only limit is the fuel in their tanks and the distance to the German border. Thompson's tank passes a burned-out German truck, then another, then a column of horse-drawn wagons that tried to flee and failed. The horses lie in the ditch, their legs stiff in the air, their eyes wide and staring. The German soldiers who drove them lie nearby, their gray uniforms dark with blood. Thompson looks at them for a moment, then looks away. There is no time for the dead. The living are moving too fast. Cut to a German headquarters, somewhere behind the crumbling front. Officers cluster around maps, their faces pale, their voices tight with panic. The reports coming in make no sense. The Americans are everywhere. They are at Coutances. They are at Avranches. They are at places that were supposed to be safe, places that were supposed to be days away. The front line, so carefully constructed over weeks of fighting, has simply ceased to exist. There is no line anymore. There are only American columns, moving south and west and east, spreading across the countryside like a flood. A young German major, a veteran of the Russian front, stares at the map in disbelief. He has seen breakthroughs before. He has seen the Russians pour through gaps in the line, has seen whole armies disintegrate under the pressure. But he has never seen anything like this. The Americans are not fighting. They are not pausing to consolidate. They are not securing their flanks. They are simply driving as if the war is a race, and they are the only ones who know it. He thinks of his own men, the few who remain, scattered and confused, trying to form defensive positions with no orders and no supplies. He thinks of the tanks they do not have, the fuel that has not arrived, the artillery that was destroyed in the bombing. He thinks of the end, which he has feared for years, but never truly believed would come. And for the first time in his long career, he allows himself to think the unthinkable. The war is lost. Not someday, not next year, now. Cut to a road junction near the town of Avranches. This is the key, the hinge on which the entire breakout turns. If the Americans can take Avranches, they will have a gateway into Brittany, into the heart of France, into the open country, where their speed and mobility can win the war. If the Germans can hold it, they can stop the flood, buy time for reinforcements, perhaps even restore the line. The Germans know this. They have thrown together a hasty defense, a mixture of anti-aircraft guns pressed into ground service, a few tanks pulled from the repair shops, and whatever infantry they could scrape together from the shattered units fleeing south. They are determined to hold. They have no choice. The Americans know this too, and they have sent their best. The first Sherman tanks appear on the road leading north, their guns already traversing, their engines screaming. The German gunners open fire with everything they have, an 88mm anti-aircraft gun designed to kill bombers at 20,000 feet, fires directly at the lead tank. The shell hits the Sherman square in the front, and the tank explodes in a ball of orange flame, its turret spinning into the air like a child's toy. But there are more tanks behind it, and more behind those. They fan out across the fields, their machine guns chattering, their cannons firing at every German position they can identify. The infantry pour out of the half-tracks, spreading through the hedgerows and orchards, flanking the German defenses from every direction. The battle for Avranches lasts 4 hours. When it is over, the road is open. The gateway to France is in American hands. Cut to a command post that is not a building, but a convoy of vehicles pulled off the road. At the center of this mobile headquarters, surrounded by radio trucks and staff cars, a new figure has appeared. He is not Bradley. He is not like Bradley. He is shorter, older, with a sharp jaw and eyes that seem to burn with an inner fire. He wears a helmet with 3 stars on it, and he moves through the chaos of his command with the energy of a man half his age. This is General George S. Patton, and he has been waiting for this moment his entire life. For weeks, Patton has been kept on a leash. His name, his fame, his very existence has been a secret kept from the Germans, a deception designed to make them believe the main attack would come elsewhere. He has chafed under this restraint, has paced in his tent like a caged animal, has written furious letters to anyone who would read them. But now the leash is off. Now his Third Army is moving. Now the war belongs to him. He stands before a map spread across the hood of a jeep, his finger tracing lines of advance that seem to go everywhere at once. To the west, into Brittany, to capture the ports the Allies desperately need. To the south, toward the Loire River, to cut off the German retreat. To the east, toward Paris, toward Germany, toward the final victory that has always been his destiny. His staff officers struggle to keep up. They mark positions, calculate fuel consumption, estimate arrival times. But Patton does not wait for their calculations. He does not wait for permission. He does not wait for anything. He gives his orders in a voice that cuts through the noise like a knife, and his men move. They move because they believe in him. They move because they are afraid of him. They move because they know that in this moment, at this hour, George Patton is the only man in the world who understands how to win this war. Cut to the road again. But now the road is changing. The smooth pavement of the initial advance has given way to dirt, to gravel, to nothing. The tanks are pushing beyond the maps, beyond the planned routes, into country that was supposed to be secured weeks from now. And with every mile they advance, the fuel gauge drops. Captain Thompson's tank is running on fumes. He knows this because he has been watching the needle for the last hour, watching it creep toward empty, watching it hover just above the red line. He has pushed his crew hard, harder than he should have, harder than the manuals allow. But the manuals did not anticipate this. The manuals did not anticipate a war where the only limit is how fast you can go. He looks at his map. The next town is 5 miles ahead. Beyond that, 10 miles, is a river crossing that the Germans might try to hold. Beyond that, the map is blank, a white space marked only with the words, "Terrain incompletely mapped." He has no idea what lies in that white space. He has no idea if the Germans are waiting there. He has no idea if he will ever see his fuel truck again. He looks at his crew. They are young, most of them, younger than he was when he started this war. They are dirty and tired and hungry, but their eyes are bright with something he has not seen in weeks. Excitement. They are chasing the enemy. They are winning. They do not want to stop. Thompson makes a decision. He will go until the tank stops. He will go until the engine dies and the tracks lock, and there is nothing left to do but wait. And then, if he has to, he will walk. He will walk all the way to Germany if that is what it takes. He gives the order to move forward. The tank lurches ahead, its engine coughing slightly, its fuel gauge hovering at 0. Behind him, the rest of the column follows, each driver making the same calculation, each commander making the same choice. They will go until they cannot go anymore, and then they will find a way to keep going. Cut to a German column trying to escape the American advance. They are a mixed force, tanks and trucks and horse-drawn wagons, all jammed together on a narrow road leading east. They have been moving for hours, but they are not moving fast enough. The Americans are behind them. The Americans are ahead of them. The Americans, impossibly, are everywhere. A young German soldier, no older than the Americans he is fleeing, sits on the back of a truck, watching the road disappear behind him. He is exhausted, hungry, terrified. He has not slept in 3 days. He has not eaten in 2. His uniform is torn, his boots are falling apart, and he has not seen his unit since the bombing began. He does not know where he is going. He does not know if he will ever see his family again. He only knows that he must keep moving, must keep running, must stay ahead of the Americans who are chasing him like hounds after a fox. The truck ahead of him explodes. He does not hear the sound at first. His ears, still ringing from the bombing, register only a dull thump, a pressure wave that pushes against his chest. But he sees the fire. He sees the men. He sees them burning, falling, dying. And he sees, in the distance, the American tanks. They are on a ridge to the south, their guns still smoking, their turrets turning toward the next target. The young German jumps from the truck and runs. He does not know where he is running. He does not care. He only knows that he must run, must flee, must escape the metal monsters that are hunting his army to extinction. He runs into a field, then into a forest, then into nothing. He runs until he cannot run any more. And then he hides, and he waits, and he prays that the Americans will pass him by. Cut to Bradley's headquarters, now relocated closer to the front. The general sits in a folding chair, studying reports that arrive faster than he can read them. The news is good, better than good. It is beyond his wildest expectations. Avranches has fallen. The Brittany ports are within reach. The German army in the west is disintegrating. But even as he reads, a new concern begins to form in his mind. The advance is too fast. The supply lines are stretched to the breaking point. His tanks are running out of gas. His men are running out of food. His trucks cannot keep up with the columns they are supposed to support. If the Germans can mount a counterattack, even a weak one, they could cut off the leading units, isolate them, destroy them piece by piece. He looks at the map. The arrows showing American advances are spreading in every direction, thin and fragile, like the tendrils of a vine reaching for support. They are beautiful. They are terrifying. They are everything he wanted and everything he feared. He thinks of Patton, racing eastward, ignoring the supply problems, ignoring the risks, ignoring everything but the pursuit. He thinks of the men in the tanks, pushing beyond their fuel, beyond their maps, beyond their orders. He thinks of the Germans, broken but not dead, capable of one last desperate strike. He makes a decision. He will let them go. He will let them run. He will push the supply lines to the breaking point and beyond. He will gamble everything on the speed of his advance, on the courage of his men, on the hope that the Germans are too broken to fight back. It is the only choice he has. It is the choice he made when he drew those X's on the map. It is the choice he makes every day of this war. Gamble or die. Move or lose. He looks out at the night, at the lights of the convoys moving south, at the distant flashes of artillery that mark the path of his armies. He listens to the sound of the engines, the endless rumble of trucks and tanks and half-tracks, the music of the American advance. And for the first time since the bombing, for the first time since the short rounds and the dead generals and the terrible arithmetic of sacrifice, he allows himself to feel something like hope. The screen holds on the night, on the moving lights, on the sound of the engines fading into the distance. Then, slowly, it fades to black. The screen is black. A sound emerges slowly, building from silence. It is not the roar of engines or the crash of guns. It is something older, more primitive. It is the sound of horses screaming. Fade in. A country road near the town of Falaise in southern Normandy. The road is narrow, lined with trees that have been stripped of their leaves by shell fire. And on this road, stretching as far as the eye can see, is the German army, or what is left of it. Tanks and trucks and staff cars are jammed together bumper to bumper, their drivers leaning on horns that no one hears, their crews staring ahead with hollow eyes. Horse-drawn wagons, relics of an earlier century, are mixed in with the most modern armored vehicles the Third Reich ever produced. Panzer IVs and Tigers, their paint still fresh, sit motionless beside farm carts, loaded with wounded men. The horses that pull them are dying on their feet, their ribs showing through their hides, their eyes wide with a terror that mirrors the men who drive them. Above the road, the sky is gray with smoke. Below it, the ditches are filled with the dead. They lie in rows and heaps in attitudes of flight that were interrupted forever. Some are soldiers, some are civilians, some are horses. They all share the same stillness, the same silence, the same final end. This is the Falaise pocket, a trap of staggering proportions, a killing ground where the German Seventh Army is being destroyed. The Americans have come from the south, the British and Canadians from the north, and between them they have created a ring of steel that is slowly, inexorably squeezing the life out of the enemy. Cut to a ridge overlooking the pocket. American artillery observers peer through binoculars, their faces expressionless as they watch the scene below. They have been watching for 3 days now, and they have stopped counting the targets. There are too many. Every road, every field, every patch of open ground is filled with German vehicles, German men, German dead. The artillery fires day and night, and still the targets keep coming. A young lieutenant, fresh from officers' training school, lowers his binoculars and turns away. He cannot watch anymore. He has seen things in the last 3 days that he will never forget, things that will haunt his dreams for the rest of his life. He has seen a Tiger tank hit by a phosphorus shell, its crew burning alive as they tried to escape the hatches. He has seen a column of horse-drawn wagons torn apart by artillery, the horses screaming and thrashing as they died, the men pinned beneath them. He has seen a young German soldier no older than himself crawl out of a ditch with his legs missing, dragging himself toward the American lines with his hands, leaving a trail of blood in the dirt behind him. The lieutenant lights a cigarette with shaking hands. He does not want to smoke. He does not want to do anything but run. Run away from this place. Run until he cannot see the horses anymore. But he cannot run. He is an officer. He has a job to do. He raises the binoculars again and resumes his watch. Cut to the floor of the pocket. A German major named Klaus von Richter moves through the chaos, his map case clutched to his chest, his eyes scanning the sky for the fighter bombers that appear every few minutes. He is a professional soldier, a veteran of Poland and France and Russia, a man who has seen the German army at its best. Now he is seeing it at its worst. Around him, his army is dissolving. Units have lost their officers. Officers have lost their men. Men have lost their minds. They wander through the wreckage like ghosts, their uniforms torn, their faces blank, their weapons discarded. They have given up. Not surrendered, not yet, but given up. They are waiting to die, or waiting to be captured, or waiting for something that will never come. They do not know which. They do not care. Von Richter steps over a body, then another, then a pile of them. He tries not to look at their faces. He tries not to think about their names, their families, their lives, but he cannot help it. He sees a young man, maybe 18, lying on his back, with his eyes open, staring at the sky. He has a photograph clutched in his hand, a picture of a girl with braids and a smile. Von Richter kneels beside him and gently closes his eyes. Then he takes the photograph and tucks it into his pocket. He does not know why. He will never look at it again. But it feels wrong to leave it there. Above him, the sound of aircraft engines grows louder. He looks up and sees them, the fighter bombers, P-47 Thunderbolts, with their distinctive bubble canopies and their wings loaded with rockets and bombs. They are beautiful and terrible, these machines, and they are hunting his army like wolves hunting sheep. The first rocket hits a fuel truck 100 meters away. The explosion is enormous, a ball of orange fire that rises into the sky like a small sun. Von Richter is thrown to the ground by the shockwave, his ears ringing, his face pressed into the dirt. When he looks up, the truck is gone. Where it stood, there is only a crater and a burning patch of ground and the scattered remains of the men who were standing nearby. The fighter bombers pull up, circle, and come back for another pass. Von Richter watches them, unable to move, unable to think, unable to do anything but watch. They are so beautiful, these machines. They are so deadly. They are everything his own Air Force was supposed to be, and never became. He thinks of the men who fly them, young men like the one whose photograph he just took. Young men with girls back home, with families, with lives ahead of them. They are killing his army. They are killing his country. And yet, in this moment, he cannot hate them. He can only envy them. They are free. They are in the sky. They are not here, on this road, in this slaughterhouse, waiting to die. Cut to an American forward position on the edge of the pocket. Captain Jack Thompson, the tank commander from Iowa, has finally stopped. His Sherman ran out of fuel 2 days ago, and he has been waiting ever since for a supply truck that has not come. But he is not idle. From his position on a low ridge, he has a perfect view of the killing ground below. He watches through his binoculars as the German columns try to escape. They are not soldiers anymore, not really. They are just men, thousands of men, trying to get out of a trap that is closing around them. He sees them abandon their vehicles, their tanks, their wounded, and run for the gaps in the Allied lines. He sees them cut down by machine gun fire, by artillery, by the fighter bombers that seem to be everywhere at once. He sees them fall, and he feels nothing. That is the part that frightens him. He feels nothing. He remembers the first German he killed, back in the hedgerows. A young man, like himself, who popped up from a trench with a Panzerfaust. Thompson shot him without thinking, without aiming, without even knowing he had pulled the trigger. And then he spent the next hour shaking, vomiting, praying. He felt everything. He felt too much. Now he watches hundreds die, and he feels nothing. He is not proud of this. He is not ashamed of it. He simply accepts it. This is what war does. This is what it takes to survive. You stop feeling, or you go mad. He lowers his binoculars and looks at his crew. They are sitting on the tank, smoking cigarettes, watching the show. They are not feeling anything either. They are beyond feeling. They are beyond everything except the next cigarette, the next meal, the next order. They are machines now, as much as the tank they ride in. And Thompson wonders, in some distant corner of his mind, if they will ever be able to feel again. If the war ends, if they go home, if they see their families again, will they be able to love them? Will they be able to cry? Will they be able to be human? He does not know. He pushes the thought away. There is no time for that. There is only the war, the pocket, the dying. Cut 2, a breakout attempt. A German battle group, a few tanks and a few hundred men, tries to force its way through a gap in the American lines. They move at night, without lights, without orders, without hope. They move because staying is death, and moving is at least a chance. The Americans are waiting for them. The night erupts in tracers and explosions. The German tanks brew up one by one, their crews burning inside. The infantry are cut down by machine guns, by mortars, by the sheer weight of American firepower. The attack lasts 20 minutes. When it is over, the gap is still closed, and the German dead are piled in heaps at the edge of the American positions. A young American soldier, a machine gunner from Pennsylvania, sits by his weapon in the darkness. He does not move. He does not speak. He stares at the bodies in front of him, barely visible in the faint light of the burning tanks. He thinks about the men he just killed. He thinks about their families, their girlfriends, their mothers. He thinks about the letters they will never write, the children they will never have, the lives they will never live. And then he thinks about himself, about his own mother waiting in Pennsylvania, about his own girl, who writes him every week, about his own life, which he hopes to live after this is over. He thinks about the randomness of it all, the luck that put him on this side of the machine gun and them on that side. He thinks about how close it is, how thin the line between living and dying, between killing and being killed. He lights a cigarette and watches the smoke drift into the night. He does not feel triumphant. He does not feel guilty. He feels nothing, just like Thompson, just like all of them. Cut 2, Bradley's headquarters. The general studies a map of the pocket, his face grim. The trap is working. The German 7th Army is being destroyed. But even as he studies the map, he knows that the victory is not complete. There is a gap, a narrow corridor between the American and Canadian forces, through which the Germans are escaping. Not many, but some. Enough to fight another day. Enough to prolong the war. He thinks of Montgomery, the British commander, who has been slow to close the gap. He thinks of the arguments, the rivalries, the national pride that has kept the two armies from working together as they should. He thinks of the men who are dying because of it, the Germans who are escaping because of it, the war that will last longer because of it. He is angry. He is frustrated. He is tired. But he is also a soldier, and soldiers do not have the luxury of anger. They have only the next decision, the next order, the next move on the board. He picks up his pencil and draws a new line on the map, a line that closes the gap, that seals the pocket, that ends this phase of the war. It is too late, he knows. The line should have been drawn days ago. But it is better late than never. It is better than nothing. He puts down the pencil and looks out the window. The sky is gray, heavy with clouds. Somewhere out there, men are dying. Somewhere out there, the war continues. Somewhere out there, the future is being written in blood. Cut 2, the pocket, 3 days later. It is over. The guns have fallen silent. The fighter-bombers have gone home. The only sounds are the wind and the crows and the occasional crackle of burning fuel. The camera moves slowly across the landscape. It is a vision of hell. Burned-out tanks lie everywhere, their turrets blown off, their hulls twisted by heat. Dead horses lie in rows, their legs stiff in the air, their eyes wide and staring. Dead men lie among them, their uniforms blending with the mud, their faces frozen in expressions of terror and surprise. The stench is unimaginable. It is the smell of death, of burning flesh, of rotting meat. It is the smell of an army destroyed, of a nation's hopes extinguished, of a war that is finally turning. American soldiers move through the wreckage, their faces masks of disgust and awe. They have never seen anything like this. They hope they never will again. They pick their way through the bodies, looking for souvenirs, looking for survivors, looking for something that makes sense in a world that has lost all meaning. One soldier, a young medic from Chicago, stops beside a German tank. The hatches open, and inside he can see the crew. They are still there, still in their seats, still manning their positions. They look like they are sleeping. They look like they might wake up at any moment and resume the fight. But they will never wake up. They are burned beyond recognition, their skin blackened, their features melted, their bodies fused with the metal of their machine. The medic turns away. He vomits into the mud. He vomits until there is nothing left, and then he vomits some more. He is not ashamed. He is not weak. He is human. And in this place, in this moment, being human is the only thing that matters. Cut 2, Bradley, standing on a ridge overlooking the pocket. He has come to see for himself, to witness the destruction his plan has wrought. He looks out at the sea of wreckage, at the thousands of bodies, at the stinking, smoking ruin of the German army. He has won. He has broken the enemy. He has opened the way to France, to Germany, to the end of the war. But he does not feel like a victor. He feels like an undertaker. He thinks of the men who died here, Germans and Americans alike. He thinks of the horses, the innocent animals caught up in a war they did not make. He thinks of the young soldier whose photograph he will never see, whose name he will never know, whose life ended in this muddy field for reasons he cannot explain. He turns away from the pocket and walks back to his jeep. He has work to do. The war is not over. There is still Germany to conquer, still Berlin to reach, still 1,000 miles of fighting ahead. But as he drives away, he cannot shake the image of the pocket, the stench of it, the horror of it. He knows he will carry it with him for the rest of his life. He knows they all will. The camera rises above the ridge, above the pocket, above the wreckage and the bodies and the smoke. It rises until the pocket becomes a scar on the landscape, a wound that will take years to heal. And then it rises further, into the clouds, into the gray sky, into the silence. The screen fades slowly to black. The screen is black. A sound emerges, soft and distant at first, then growing clearer. It is the sound of bells, church bells, ringing not in alarm, but in joy. They ring across the countryside, from village to village, town to town, a wave of sound that travels faster than any army. Fade in. A road leading eastward from the Falaise pocket. The wreckage of the German army is still visible in the rearview mirrors of the American vehicles. But ahead, the landscape is changing. The craters are fewer. The burned-out tanks are gone. The dead are no longer piled in the ditches. Instead, there are fields of wheat golden in the late summer sun. There are orchards, heavy with apples. There are villages with white stone houses and red tile roofs, their windows thrown open, their doors standing wide. And in every village, in every town, the people are waiting. The camera moves along the road, following a column of American tanks and trucks. The soldiers are different now than they were a week ago. Their faces are still tired, still haunted by what they have seen. But there is something new in their eyes, something like wonder. They are not prepared for what awaits them. The first village appears around a bend in the road. It is small, perhaps a few hundred people, with a church at its center and a single street running through it. The American column slows as it approaches, the soldiers scanning the windows and doorways for signs of danger. They have learned the hard way that civilians can be traps, that joy can be a mask for ambush. But there is no ambush here. There is only joy. The people pour out of their houses like water from a broken dam. They run toward the Americans, their arms outstretched, their faces wet with tears. Old women and young children, men in their best suits, and women in their Sunday dresses, they come from every direction, surrounding the vehicles, pressing against the tanks, reaching up to touch the hands of the soldiers. A young French girl, no more than 10 years old, climbs onto the hood of a jeep and throws her arms around the neck of the driver, a stunned sergeant from Texas, who has no idea what to do. She is crying and laughing at the same time, speaking French so fast that he cannot understand a word. But he does not need to understand. He knows what she means. She means thank you. She means welcome. She means we are free. Behind her, an old man approaches with a bottle of wine, the same bottle he has been hiding since 1940, saving it for this moment, for the day the Americans came. He presses it into the hands of a young lieutenant, his own hands shaking with emotion, his eyes bright with tears he is too old to hide. The lieutenant takes the bottle and tries to say something, but the words will not come. He simply nods, and the old man nods back. And in that nod is everything that needs to be said. Cut to the column moving again, but moving differently now. The tanks are covered with people. Children ride on the fenders, their legs dangling over the sides. Old women sit on the hoods, clutching loaves of bread and bunches of flowers. Young men hang from the turrets, waving bottles of wine and shouting songs that no one knows. The American soldiers grin and wave and try to pretend that this is normal, that this is how war always ends. But they know it is not normal. They know this is something rare, something precious, something they will remember for the rest of their lives. They have seen the worst that war can do. They have walked through the slaughterhouse of the Falaise Pocket. They have smelled the death and heard the screams and felt the horror of it all. And now, after all of that, they are seeing the other side. They are seeing what they have been fighting for. A young private from Ohio, a boy named Thomas, who lied about his age to join the army, sits on the back of a half-track with a French girl on his lap. She is maybe 8 years old, with dark hair and a gap-toothed smile, and she has attached herself to him like a barnacle. She is showing him a doll, a ragged thing made of scraps, and chattering away in French that he cannot follow. He does not care. He holds her carefully, gently, as if she might break. And he thinks about his little sister back home, the one he has not seen in 2 years, the one he hopes to see again when this is over. He looks down at the girl, at her dirty face and her bright eyes, and he feels something he has not felt in months. He feels human. He feels like himself. He feels like the war has not destroyed him after all. Cut to a larger town, big enough to have a square and a mayor and a proper celebration. The Americans arrive to find the entire population gathered in the streets, waving flags they have kept hidden for 4 years. Tricolors appear from nowhere, draped from windows and waved by children, and held aloft by old men who fought in the last war. The sound of cheering is deafening. A wall of noise that seems to lift the soldiers off their feet and carry them forward. In the town square, a platform has been erected, decorated with flowers and bunting. On this platform stand the mayor, the priest, and a dozen other dignitaries, all of them beaming with pride and joy. They have prepared speeches, long speeches, speeches that have been 4 years in the making. They want to thank the Americans. They want to honor the fallen. They want to celebrate the liberation. The American commander, a colonel from Pennsylvania, climbs onto the platform and listens to the speeches with a fixed smile on his face. He does not understand a word, but he nods along, hoping that is the right thing to do. Behind him, his men are mobbed by the crowd, hugged and kissed and pressed with gifts. They accept it all with the dazed expressions of men who have just woken from a nightmare to find themselves in a dream. A young woman approaches the colonel. She is beautiful, with dark hair and eyes that seem to hold all the sorrow of the occupation. She carries a wreath of flowers, which she places at the base of the war memorial in the center of the square. Then she turns to the colonel and takes his hands in hers. She speaks slowly, carefully, in English learned from a book. "Thank you," she says. "Thank you for our freedom. Thank you for our lives. We will never forget." The colonel looks at her, at the tears streaming down her face, at the gratitude in her eyes, and he feels his own eyes begin to sting. He has been a soldier for 20 years. He has seen death and destruction and the worst of humanity, but he has never seen anything like this. He has never been thanked like this. He has never felt so completely, so overwhelmingly, that what he does matters. He tries to speak, but his voice fails him. He simply nods and squeezes her hands and hopes she understands. Cut to the outskirts of the town. A young German soldier left behind when his unit fled watches the celebration from a hayloft in a barn. He is 15 years old, though his papers say he is 17. He joined the army because he was told it was his duty, because he believed in the cause, because he had no choice. Now he is hiding in a barn, watching the enemy celebrate, waiting for someone to find him and decide his fate. He watches the Americans through a crack in the wall. They are laughing, hugging, kissing French girls. They look happy. They look like boys on a holiday, not soldiers in a war. He cannot understand it. He has been taught that Americans are decadent, weak, unwilling to sacrifice. But these men have fought their way across France. These men have killed his comrades. These men have won. He thinks about his own army, the army that was supposed to be invincible. He thinks about the officers who told him they would win, who promised him victory, who sent him to fight and die for a cause he barely understood. He thinks about the bodies he saw on the road, the burned tanks, the dead horses, the endless columns of prisoners shuffling to the rear. He thinks about the lies. He hears a sound below him. Someone is in the barn. He holds his breath, presses himself against the hay, prays that whoever it is will not look up. But they do look up. They are looking for him. They have always been looking for him. A face appears in the opening to the hayloft. It is an American soldier, young like himself, with dirt on his face and a rifle in his hands. Their eyes meet. For a long moment, neither of them moves. Neither of them breathes. Then the American does something the German does not expect. He lowers his rifle. He holds up his hand, palm outward, in a gesture that needs no translation. It means stop. It means wait. It means I am not going to hurt you. The German hesitates. He thinks about running. He thinks about fighting. He thinks about the pistol in his belt, the one he has never fired, the one he does not know how to use. But he does not reach for it. He looks at the American's face, at the eyes that are not filled with hatred. And he makes a choice. He raises his hands above his head. The American nods. He gestures for the German to climb down. The German obeys, moving slowly, carefully, his hands never leaving the air. When he reaches the ground, the American pats him down, finds the pistol, and takes it. He looks at it for a moment, then tucks it into his own belt. He looks at the German, at the boy who is supposed to be his enemy. He sees the fear in his eyes, the youth in his face, the confusion of a child caught in a war he did not make. He thinks about the celebration in the town, the joy of the French, the meaning of liberation. And he thinks about this boy, this German boy, who is also someone's son, someone's brother, someone's love. He points toward the road, toward the rear, toward the prisoner collection points, where thousands of Germans are already waiting. The boy understands. He starts walking. The American watches him go, then turns and walks back toward the town, toward the celebration, toward the joy. He does not look back. Cut to Paris. Not yet, but soon. The news of the liberation spreads faster than any army. In the cafes and cellars of the capital, the resistance prepares to rise. In the German headquarters, the commanders prepare to flee. In the streets, the people wait, their hearts pounding with hope and fear. The Americans are coming, the British are coming, the Free French are coming. The liberation of France, which began on the beaches of Normandy, which broke through the hedgerows of the bocage, which destroyed the German army at Falaise, is about to reach its climax. But that is another story. For now, there is only this moment, this village, this celebration, this joy. Cut to Bradley's headquarters, now established in a chateau, south of the pocket. The general sits alone on a terrace, looking out over the French countryside. Behind him, he can hear the sounds of celebration, the laughter and singing of his staff, the clinking of glasses, the pop of champagne corks. They are celebrating the victory, the breakout, the liberation. Bradley does not join them. He sits alone, a glass of wine untouched at his elbow, and thinks about the road behind him. He thinks about the hedgerows, the dead, the names on the casualty lists. He thinks about Private Reynolds, the boy from Ohio with the photograph in his pocket. He thinks about all the others, the thousands of others, who will never see a village like this, who will never be kissed by a French girl, who will never taste the wine of liberation. He knows that this is the price. He knows that victory requires sacrifice. He knows that war is arithmetic, and arithmetic requires numbers, and numbers mean dead men. But knowing does not make it easier. Knowing does not fill the empty places in his heart. He looks out at the countryside, at the golden fields and the red roofs, and the distant spire of a church. He thinks about the future, about Germany, about the long road ahead. He thinks about the men who will die on that road, the names that will be added to the lists, the mothers who will never see their sons again. And he thinks about this moment of joy, of liberation, of hope. He knows that moments like this are rare. He knows that they must be cherished. He knows that they are why he fights, why he plans, why he sends men to die. He picks up the glass of wine and raises it, not in a toast, but in a salute to the living, a salute to the dead, a salute to the France that is free and the Germany that still waits, and the war that is not yet won. He drinks. The wine is warm and sweet. It tastes like summer. It tastes like life. It tastes like everything he has been fighting for. The camera pulls back from the terrace, from Bradley, from the chateau. It rises above the village, above the celebration, above the laughter and the tears and the joy. It rises until the village becomes a dot, the countryside, a patchwork, the whole of France, a map of liberation. And then it rises further, into the clouds, into the light, into the silence. The screen fades slowly to black. The screen is black. For a long moment, there is only silence. Then slowly a sound emerges. It is not the bells of liberation, not the roar of engines, not the crash of guns. It is something softer, more intimate. It is the sound of rain falling on leaves. Fade in. A cemetery in Normandy. Not a military cemetery, not yet, but a temporary one. A field where the dead have been laid in rows, their graves marked with crude wooden crosses, and here and there the Star of David. The rain falls steadily, soaking the fresh earth, running in rivulets down the white crosses, pooling in the mud between the graves. A soldier stands at the edge of the cemetery. He is alone. His uniform is wet, his face is wet, but it is impossible to tell if the wetness on his cheeks is rain or tears. He holds a piece of paper in his hand, a letter he has written but will never send. He reads it silently, his lips moving slightly, forming words that no one will hear. The camera moves closer, and we see the name on the nearest cross. Reynolds, William, Private, Ohio, July 24th, 1944. The soldier is not Reynolds. He is someone else, someone who knew him, someone who carries his memory. He kneels beside the grave and places the letter on the wet earth. He does not cover it. He does not protect it from the rain. He lets it lie there, the ink running, the words dissolving, until it becomes nothing but pulp, nothing but mud, nothing but another piece of the soldier's life absorbed into the soil of France. He stands. He looks at the grave for a long moment. Then he turns and walks away, disappearing into the rain, into the mist, into the history that is already beginning to claim them all. Cut to Bradley's headquarters. Weeks later. The war has moved on. The general stands before a map of Europe, but this map is different from the ones before. The arrows no longer point south toward the breakout, toward the liberation. Has won the greatest victory of his career, has broken the German army in the West, has liberated France. But the war is not over. It will not be over for a long time. And every day, more names are added to the lists. He thinks about the road ahead, the Siegfried Line, the German border fortifications, waiting for him, the autumn rains, turning the roads to mud, grounding his air support, the German army, broken but not destroyed, fighting now for its homeland, for its very existence. He thinks about the men who will die on that road, the names that will be carved on new crosses, the mothers, who will never stop waiting. He picks up a pencil and draws a new arrow on the map. It points east toward Germany, toward the future, toward the end. He does not know when that end will come. He does not know how many men will die before it does. He only knows that he must keep moving, keep fighting, keep drawing arrows until there are no more arrows to draw. Cut to the German border. Autumn 1944. The first American troops have reached the West Wall, the defensive line the Germans built before the war. They look at the concrete bunkers, the dragon's teeth, the minefields, and they know that the easy part is over. The pursuit is finished. The liberation is complete. Now comes the hard part. Now comes Germany. A young sergeant from Ohio, the same one who knelt at Reynolds' grave, looks out at the German defenses. He thinks about how far he has come, from the beaches of Normandy, through the hedgerows, through the breakout, through the Falaise pocket, through the liberation of Paris, to this moment, this place, this line in the earth that separates France from Germany. He thinks about Reynolds, about the photograph in his pocket, about the girl in Ohio who will never see him again. He thinks about all the others, the ones who started this journey and did not finish it. He thinks about the ones who will start the next journey, the one into Germany, and will not finish that either. He lights a cigarette and watches the smoke drift toward the German lines. He does not know what awaits him there. He does not know if he will come back. He only knows that he will go forward, because that is what soldiers do. That is what Reynolds would have wanted. That is what all of them, the living and the dead, have been fighting for. Cut to a small town in Germany, years later. The war is over. The peace has begun. An American soldier, now a civilian, walks down a street that was once enemy territory. He is not young anymore. His hair is gray, his step is slow. He carries a small bag and a folded map, and he is looking for something. He finds it. A church, old and weathered, with a cemetery beside it. He walks among the graves, reading the names, until he finds the one he is looking for. It is a German grave, marked with a simple stone. The name on it means nothing to him. He does not know this man. He never met him. But he knows what he represents. He kneels beside the grave and reaches into his pocket. He pulls out a photograph, creased and faded, the image almost gone. It shows a woman and two children, smiling at a camera that no longer exists. It is the photograph he picked up in the German trench all those years ago on the day the bombs fell and the world changed. He places the photograph on the grave. He does not know if this is the right grave. He does not know if the man buried here is the man in the photograph. He does not know anything except that it feels right, that it feels necessary, that it feels like the only way to close a circle that has been open for too long. He stands. He looks at the grave for a long moment. Then he turns and walks away, leaving the photograph behind, leaving the past behind, leaving the war behind. Cut to Normandy. The present day. The camera moves slowly across the American cemetery at Omaha Beach, the one that was built after the war, the one that holds the remains of nearly 10,000 soldiers. The white crosses stretch to the horizon, row after row after row, a silent army standing eternal guard over the beach they liberated. Among the crosses, visitors walk slowly, speaking in hushed voices. They are families mostly, descendants of the men who fought here. They come to pay respect, to remember, to connect with a past that is slipping away. They touch the crosses. They leave flowers. They cry. A young boy, maybe 10 years old, stands before a cross and reads the name aloud. It is a name from Ohio, a private who died in July 1944. The boy does not know this man. He never could have known him. But he feels something, standing there, looking at that name. He feels the weight of history. He feels the presence of the dead. He feels, for the first time in his young life, the cost of freedom. His mother puts her hand on his shoulder. She does not speak. She does not need to. They stand together, mother and son, before the cross, and they remember. They remember a man they never knew, a war they never fought, a sacrifice they can never fully understand. But they try. They try because that is all anyone can do. They try because the dead deserve nothing less. Cut to Bradley in his old age. He sits in a rocking chair on a porch in California, looking out at the Pacific Ocean. The war is long over. The men he led are mostly gone. He is the last of them, the final witness to a history that is already becoming myth. He holds a photograph in his hands. It is the same photograph he looked at during the war, the one of the B-17S, the one that represented the gamble he took. He stares at it for a long time, his old eyes searching for something in the image, something he may have missed. He thinks about the operation, about the bombs that fell short, about the men who died under their own planes, about the breakout, the pursuit, the pocket, the liberation, about all of it, about everything. He thinks about Private Reynolds, whose name he saw on a list and never forgot. He thinks about the photograph in his pocket, the girl in Ohio, the life that was cut short. He thinks about all the others, the thousands of others, whose names he never knew but whose faces he still sees in his dreams. He puts the photograph down and looks out at the ocean. The sun is setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red, the same colors he saw over Normandy on the night the breakout began. He watches it for a long time, saying nothing, thinking everything. And then quietly, almost to himself, he speaks. Not to anyone in particular, not to the dead or the living or the future, just to the silence, to the ocean, to the fading light. It was worth it, he says. It had to be worth it. The camera holds on his face, on the old man looking out at the sea, on the weight of history in his eyes. Then it pulls back, slowly, rising above the porch, above the house, above the California coast. It rises higher and higher until the land becomes a blur, until the ocean becomes a plain, until everything becomes small and distant and insignificant. And then, for a moment, the camera pauses. We see, superimposed over the image of the earth, the white crosses of Normandy. Thousands of them, stretching to the horizon, gleaming in an eternal sunlight. They are beautiful. They are terrible. They are the price. The screen holds on the crosses for a long, silent moment. Then slowly, they begin to fade. The white becomes gray, then black, until nothing is left but darkness. And in that darkness, a final sound. Not bells, not guns, not rain, just a whisper. So faint, it might be imagination. So soft, it might be nothing at all. It is a name. One name among thousands. Reynolds. William. Private. Ohio. The whisper fades. The silence deepens. The screen remains black. And then, after a long moment, the words appear. In the summer of 1944, More than 50,000 American soldiers were killed, wounded, or missing in the campaign to break out of Normandy. Their sacrifice opened the way to the liberation of France and the defeat of Nazi Germany. They are not forgotten. The words fade. The screen holds black for 10 seconds. Then, finally, the end.